I just saw your note page. You have stickers in it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's important to show respect.
I know.
To the people.
I like that you've decorated your notes.
I'm a Virgo as well, so
We know that's why we chose you for this
thank you
job.
very much. And after this, we plan our next battle strategy, and we take over the world. It'll be very exciting. Okay.
I really feel like I feel like we get each other.
Oh,
Like we
profoundly.
exchanged 8 messages about what you were gonna wear
Yes.
and talked through what I was gonna wear.
Yes.
And then we showed up looking like this.
Yes. We wore very similar jeans that might actually be the same style.
We did.
I don't know if you noticed, I didn't talk to either of them.
Sarah and I are strangers. Tegan and I are internet best friends.
We are. Well, you wrote a wonderful book too that I
Thank
enjoyed
you.
very much.
Well,
yeah.
let's make this about me. Yeah, I did. So it's here. You can all buy it. It's called Nobody Cares. But you wrote a book. Both of you did together. And we're going to talk about that. And I'm not going to give anything away because I would hate to take that experience away from you guys because there's so much in here that's like very beautiful and very personal and very warm. And I think it takes an immense amount of vulnerability. And like, you don't need some broad with a microphone being like, so in this chapter, and then you guys would be like, cool, what a hack. So first and foremost, it's called high school. Spoiler alert. I think when most of us think about high school, it's not amazing. Like, it can be a very painful memory and it can feel terrible to think about. So I think the first question, and by I think I mean it is certainly the first question, how did you push back? What's going on?
It's like, is there any way to turn the music off? Is that possible?
It's my
God,
favorite song.
I'm
but
so
that's
sorry.
There's gonna be a riot. Look,
I'm so
everyone was
sorry.
like, "Ah, turn it down."
It'd be one thing if it was, Tegan and Sara, or just like, acoustic instrumentals of Anne's record. But that's so much better.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
It was my record playing.
This is how I know I'm getting old. Is I have zero tolerance now for multiple sounds happening at the same time. Like used to be able to like.
Sarah's hearing aid was getting
Yeah.
close for the music.
I was like, I can't focus. Oh my god.
Okay,
No,
Anne,
thank
Anne,
you.
your
I'm so
question.
sorry.
Listen, characters. We'll talk about
We've been
that
up here for 5 minutes. Haven't talked about high school yet.
No.
Sorry.
Otherwise, you're killing it.
No,
We're
we're
killing
having
it.
fun.
Yeah,
It's like we're having a fun living room party. This is the kind of living room parties I go to. It's chairs and me speaking. So we talk about high school. Most of us would like to walk into the sea when we think and talk about it. How did you push past the instinct to push stuff down and to not talk about things? Like, how did you, find the bravery to kind of wade into the best and the worst parts of growing up?
I think it's important to note that we are not unlike the rest of the world. We also feel embarrassed of what we looked like in high school or things that we did. And I don't just mean like laughing at our hair. I mean like there are things that I feel ashamed of that I did. I have regrets. I have trauma. I have all of these things, but
They're all in the book.
a lot of them are in the book. But I think that it's important for us to also make the connection that our career our band started in high school. If nothing of interest had happened in high school beyond like us having our first sexual experiences or taking drugs, or it's not just one significant thing. I think there's like so much development and so many firsts and so many sort of seminal experiences, and that they're all tied to the public facing part of our lives. It made it easier for us to go back and justify like, okay, this sort of deserves to be deconstructed, or this narrative hasn't quite been accurately told in the press over the last 20 years. And because there is, I think, a really interesting storytelling part of like how this band started, how our relationship developed before we were in the public eye. I think there's a justifiable reason to go back and harm ourselves by having to spend so much time with teenage Tegan and Sara.
I also think we did just spend 10 minutes backstage talking about what we would change about ourselves if we could, but I think that we're also really hard on our younger selves. I think collectively, like our culture, our society, Sarah and I have been doing press for the book and record for a couple months now, and almost every single person we talk to starts by saying, I would rather burn everything I've kept from that era than actually revisit it or ever put it out into the world. And I think one of the profound things that has happened to me since writing this book and going back is realizing that we need to be kinder to ourselves and be kinder to the youthful parts of ourselves. So much of what I discovered in the last 2 years about myself from that time, I really love, and most of it is me still. And I think all of us probably could be a little easier on ourselves. You know what I mean?
You're making reference to all the jokes I've made about myself in the past of wearing a built-in bra and pleather pants to grades 9 and 10. I did look great.
Even the clothes part, I would love to live in a world where adults were still taking risks, like wearing pleather and then just being like, you know what, I'm gonna go with rave clothes for the next year. I'm just gonna see, like, I'd love to see like a 55-year-old woman like walk into her, her job.
I know exactly where you can go. That's called Comic-Con. It happens in South America.
But this is the thing, is that, like, imagine a world in which we are still brave and excited and curious about trying out different things and not laughing at each other because of it. And
oh my God, watching the footage of us from that era, the first 50 times I felt so embarrassed, but then now when I see it, the enthusiasm, the earnest, like, kind of just optimism and excitement, and we're just falling all over ourselves to tell everybody how we feel. And I think young people,
I'm gonna get you pleather pants for your birthday this year.
Well, it was 2 weeks ago. Thanks for
I'm
missing
gonna
it.
get you a belated birthday present, and it's pleather.
I'll wear them, and then I'll take a
pleather. I thought pleather's better than leather.
pleather. Sure, yes, 100%. But guys, they were from Stitches, and they were very low and very inspired by all ages clubbing going on here in Southern Ontario. You guys went to raves, and I was like, let's pour myself into this and see how many older men will touch me in this bar.
You thought our memoir was risque.
I remember a guy flashed us on the way out, and I was like, we've made it, ladies. Like, what? Anyways, patriarchy. Terrible. Now, here's what I really loved about your book so much. First of all, you include, I loved everything about your book. I know that I was going to get a DM from you later, just like, did you not love everything about the book? I loved how you included, I don't want to say they're characters because they're real people, but there is almost like a cast of characters throughout the whole, from start to finish. And sometimes you don't think they're going to like pop up again. There's like, oh, this is done. And then there's someone like, Tess, where you're like, where did Tess go? And then you go to the acknowledgements, and these people are actually like, you're still in contact with them. They're still your friends. I think a lot of us with like essay and first person culture are very, very quick to tell a story without being able to determine if it is your story or whether it belongs to somebody else. So how are you able to determine what stories were okay for you to tell from your narrative, or whether maybe they did belong to another person?
But we had a lot of great help along the way. I mean, we had an editor here in Canada and in the States that worked with us, and I think that they helped us find, like, our first draft of the book was over 500 pages, and every subsequent draft we handed in even more new writing, and I think that they helped us find our story. I think one of the ways I reassured the people in my life that we were writing about was that there was great purpose behind writing this book. We weren't just doing it to have something to do. We felt like queer female stories don't get told very often, and especially when you start to look at it in the world of music. And I think we were excited to debunk some of the myths about our band and about us, and to tell our story in our own words. But I also was just hoping that this book would reach people who needed a book like this. I know I needed a book like this when I was young. There was no representation for me in the 90s. I had no language about my identity. I had no way to put into context how I was feeling because I didn't see anyone like me, and I really wanted this book to reach people of all ages, but specifically young people, of course. And so we really sold the book to our friends by saying, like, there's a reason to do this. And I think most of our friends are okay with it. I think that at the forefront of my mind at all times was, is this my story? And do these details need to be here? And in cases where I didn't think revealing someone's identity or telling a part of the story or assigning a bad thing to the person who really did that thing, I would erase it. And a lot of the chapters we wrote, we would hand in a chapter and be 6,000 words, and we would cut it down to 2,500 words. And I think for us, we needed to write those details in there, but they didn't actually need to be there. So I don't think we revealed too much about other people, but yet to be. We'll see how next week goes. We'll see when our dad hasn't even read it yet.
I love your dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Bruce has read it.
I love Bruce.
Bruce loved it.
Bruce seems great. Bruce is their stepdad.
Yeah.
And he is like...
He loved it so much that I'm sure he didn't read it.
Right.
He read the first few chapters for sure because he referenced things. There's a very big story about him using the F word about homosexual people and we have a big blowout. And I know he read that, but he, other than saying, apologized for the young people in the audience, but he did call me the other day and called us little fuckers because we did so much acid.
I did retweet that.
Yeah.
Of yours. I liked that. I liked
it?
that endorsement because
Yeah.
you're like, now buy the book. And I'm like, it's exactly.
But all that happens in the first half of the book, so I don't think he read the whole book.
It's supposed to like, and your mom, like, I don't know if I'll have to swear in this store, but like, fuck, dude, she's an incredible woman. She's like so strong. Like, you guys, you do a really good job of like painting your family. I think when you read someone's memoir, sometimes you're like, is this bullshit or is this somebody like actually telling their story? And like your honesty really, really, really comes through in this beautiful, very reliable, and I think very helpful way. Like you said, you wanted a book for teen you, and it's like, I don't know how any teen could read this and not be like completely like touched by it, especially if they're looking for like queer writers to step up and tell their stories and like make a space. You're very honest in your music too. Obviously, you've gotten far for a reason. How were you able, like, how is the honesty in your music different from the honesty in this book? Because writing a book of essays is awful. Like, it's a really horrible experience.
I really enjoyed writing the book, I have to
What?
say. It turns out that the discipline required to write the book, we sort of already have for writing music and for doing music. I mean, like, we are not the kinds of artists who sit down and write a song in 30 minutes. We're artists who developed our craft using, Tegan sometimes does, but believe me when I tell you that there is a tremendous amount of work required to write songs and to record albums, to tour. I mean, the discipline to get up every day and to do press and to travel. Sometimes we do tours where we're out on the road touring and working and doing promo for over 200 days a year. And I think the idea that musicians are these sort of like flexible artists, whimsical characters who just sort of like blow through town like leaves on a windy day or whatever. Like, we are
beautiful prose.
Yeah, I'm a writer.
You just read one of your
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm trying to be nice because we're like in the Indigo, but I think that we underestimate a lot of the artists who are making music or writing books or whatever it is. Like, Tegan and I are businesswomen almost first and foremost at this point. We run multiple companies, we have employees, we have staff and ancillary people who we deal with on a daily basis. We send hundreds of emails about tiny details to big, large-scale, long-term, career affecting things. So to sit down and actually say, like, this is the task at hand and I want to write this story, it is hard. I'm not saying it's not hard, but I actually really enjoyed the sort of the sort of like acute, like, I have to sit down and do this 8 hours a day, and I have to sort of be coherent, and I have to do research, and I have to work with Tegan. I don't know, like, there was something about it that really was deeply satisfying, like choosing to like start, like, I don't know, Orange Theory and then just get ripped or something. Like, I just remember this sense of like, the harder we worked at the book, the more competent I felt, the stronger I felt, and the easier it got to complete the thing. But I also think that your question about like the difference of writing a book to writing a song, I think the music is abstract and it gets to be more anonymous, and it doesn't have to be, it doesn't name names, and it doesn't, I think a lot of people in our lives who have been the subject of our music, or who have been the object of our affection, or who have broken our hearts, or who have hurt us, it was such a one-sided thing to sing a song about them and have people not really know. I really struggle with the idea that we would hurt anyone in the writing of the book. I even my parents, who, we were very generous in some cases about the way that we shared stories about them. I want you to like my mom. I want you to think my mom is badass and smart and a great parent, because she was, but she also sometimes wasn't. And she wasn't always around, and all three of our parents were somewhat absent, or that we didn't have as much supervision as, like, for example, I think kids get now. And there was collateral damage because of that. We did do a lot of drugs. We didn't participate in the things that we should have participated in. We were having sex, before we really knew how to talk about it or understand it or the effect it was going to have. And I was very aware that even if we write my mom in the most gentle of ways, she feels that this she is very under the microscope and very on blast, and we're really sensitive about that, and we were really careful about it. Whereas with music, I'm like, too bad. You want to sleep with me, you end up in the song. Like, that's just how I feel.
That is like a dream ethos too. Also, you can separate yourself a little bit in that way too. I'm gonna start a band, is what I'm saying. Just kidding. It would be.
I think I had to see Sarah's whole story take shape and see my own in the middle of it to sort of realize where I wanted to go, I guess. And that I would say at that point we'd been writing 3 or 4 months, and I ended up reaching out to some people I hadn't seen since high school, and one of them was incredibly generous, showed up to a dinner with me. Again, I hadn't seen her since graduation, and brought like 50 notes that Sarah and I had written her in the first 4 months of high school.
That's really special.
It was special. It was also very helpful because a lot of grade 10 was missing for me because we took a lot of acid.
I can't believe how much acid you
Yeah,
used.
and here's the thing, I thought we'd exaggerated it, and then I started reading through these notes, and I tally it up for her often in the notes, and there was all sorts of, like, I'm sure many of you have seen the website and a lot of the social media stuff, but like, there were things that I didn't understand in the notes either. Like, there were things that I really needed to reach out to people and piece together. Like Sarah, a lot of the main characters for Sarah in the book we're very close with still, but a lot of the people who had a really big effect on me in the first couple of years of high school, I was no longer in touch with, and I'd never processed with as an adult. And so for me, that's when I really started to dig in, and I think that's when the process got very cathartic for me because there was a lot missing for me. And then I read those notes and I was like, wow, I always thought that I was going to be famous, which was a shock to me.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's
like,
great.
I'd written 2 songs in like all cap locks. I'm like, we are going to be professional musicians. I am going to be a rock star. And I'm
But
like,
that's the
confidence.
Yes.
Very confident.
Confidence.
I thought I found confidence in adulthood, but it appears I was born with it. All of it.
There's nothing like teen confidence when you're in the moment as a teen feeling
So,
confident. And
yeah.
then as soon as it goes away, you're like, ah! And then you collapse in on yourself with a
Then you're
nine star.
mean. And I think,
Mine hasn't gone yet.
yeah, it's, Tegan and I always joke that in the womb, like, our emotional strengths and weaknesses were doled out the same way like food and nutrients were. So, like, Tegan was like, I'll take all that, and I was like, I guess I'm left with nothing. So I'll just carry that burden for the both of us for the rest of our lives.
Well, I found both of you as like your teen characters, because it's a book, but also it's real, whatever, to be profoundly like, I was in awe of how you were able to articulate yourselves, even though I know that you're like, you give yourself a lot of credit, but at the same time you have adult perspective. But you give yourself, like, you're able to really look at things in a really important way, but I think also you really did highlight that you were very self-aware, even though maybe you weren't quite ready to be as self-aware as you needed to be. Like, it was an exercise in watching these like 2 young people grow into like the foundation for these, like, I hate that like strong women archetype, but like seriously, like super strong, talented, driven women. Like, did you learn that about yourself as you were writing that, or was that something you were well aware of, considering you have a career that's like bananas successful and you've gone to the Grammys and Oscars and you're kind of like, I mean, we're here with you, Anne, but that's more of a favor to you.
I like that train, how it went there.
Thank you very much.
Let's just take a moment to reassure you that we love you,
Aww.
and we're all here together.
Thank you.
It's an honor to have you here, and you're great, and you're doing great.
Well, why
You're doing
didn't you
well.
let me join the fucking band?
Yeah, we
Come
can.
back.
I already have to give 50% of everything to Tegan, so I'm not cutting anyone else in, unfortunately.
I have fun aunt energy, and I'm gonna bring that to every live show. People in the back who like hate me are like, no, please don't. Please be a joke.
We were really confident kids in so many ways, and I think, like most teenagers, you know, we were giggly and loud and performers and confident and funny and, like I said earlier, I mean, just clothing alone, I mean, we were risk-taking and brave, and we had thick skin, you know. By the time we ended high school, you know, those same kids that would make fun of us or laugh at us because of the clothes we wore, instead of hiding from them or, you know, being afraid of them, it was like, if you don't like the way I look, don't look at me. And I can remember that adaptation or that sort of evolution happening over the course of high school. But what I think happens in adulthood, and probably because we are public figures who often speak in sound bites and have our stories kind of truncated or shortened for time. I think this idea that we are only those things is what gets played out again and again and again. We are out and comfortable with being queer, therefore we must not suffer any kind of self-loathing or shame. We must not have had trauma. If we can be so well adjusted, it must have been easy for us, or that we must have had the same experience. And I think there's something profound to me about spending time really putting the story down on paper, because I do want people to see something more textured and something more complicated. And I think a lot of us in the queer community and outside of the queer community, I don't think this is just a gay thing, but like, there are times where I feel very confident. And as a teenager, I probably, like Tegan, thought, this feels right. When we play music, something happens. I think we could do this. And there were times where I felt like I had no future. I literally could not see anything for myself. And I was so ashamed of my sexuality and so uncomfortable with my body. And that made it sometimes impossible to feel like I had a future in the public sphere, because I just was like, I can actually remember thinking, I can't play guitar because I have breasts.
Really?
Like, where did I learn that? Why did I think that? Why do,
Our guitar was huge.
The guitar was huge.
And we don't have a ton of waist.
We don't.
We were talking about that.
Very short bodies.
Very short-waisted people.
Both of us were like 2 extra inches. That's all we needed.
I think those are just like those. I think that it's now easy for me as an adult to go back and sort of unpack that. What did I really feel? I felt ashamed of my body, and I felt uncomfortable, and I didn't know how I was going to sit on stage or talk about that with people, because I barely understood it myself. And I think, to go back and look at myself as a teenager and be a little bit tender with those parts of me that want to be like, ew, I was so gross, or God, why didn't I stop talking, or God, I was such a jerk, or whatever. And it's like, I was in pain and I was lashing out at myself most specifically and harshly, but like, I also was sort of struggling with that. And so there was not that narrative of, like, Tegan simplifies it. I think she probably had some of this angst as well, but my experience of having attention around our music wasn't solely like, yes, we're gonna make it, this is awesome. It was like, we're gonna make it. Can we make it? Are we good? I feel bad. I feel scared. We're gonna make it. No, I don't know if we will. I'm scared of adults. I don't know. It was like a sort of cycle of thought, and it's exciting for me to talk about it publicly, because I think it also allows us to talk about queer people and our identities with more sensitivity to the fact that not everyone is riding down a rainbow float on Bloor Street like, yes, I'm gay. And the idea that it is still okay to feel bad about yourself, or complicated about your feelings, or complicated about your body. I think that we need to include that in the narrative of it got better. I think it needs to be part of that.
Well, that's a perfect answer. So I have absolutely no.
Thank you.
Yeah. Could you imagine if I was like,
You're like,
I
I don't really feel like I've thought of it. I think you should dig back in.
You know what? I'm gonna need more elaboration here. Can I get some? No. Okay, I got the 5-minute signal before we go into Q&A. I have some rules for those in a second, but this is
because you're a Virgo.
Because I'm a Virgo, and I'm Virgo and Leos everywhere. It's a nightmare. Because like we know, in your teen selves that you're the most proud of, like, having carried into adulthood?
Well, it's weird because I a lot of the stories that Sara tells about me, but my family, like, we always talked. When I was a teenager, I had taken all the lights out of my bedroom and just put black lights in, and I like listened to a lot of Nirvana, and I was very dark, and there was this sort of narrative that I was this anxious, kind of depressed, dark figure. But I was really thrilled to look back at the footage and that we found and all the tapes. I'm actually really silly and funny and very extroverted and outgoing. I mean, I was both things, and you can be both things, but I was really happy to see that I was, like, I talk a lot in the footage about, happiness and joy and figuring out who you are, and like, I'm basically a motivational speaker at 15, and I am now too. And Sara kind of makes fun of me about it, because I always it's kind of my most annoying but also my best quality is that I constantly put everything in perspective, and I find something positive about it. And my partner recently told me that she can't remember a day in the last. You've lost your privileges.
Don't worry, I'm loud.
That she was telling me that in 4 years she can't think of a morning that she's woken up and I haven't been in a good mood and smiling, and I feel like that I was really thrilled to go back. I know Sarah's disgusted by it, but I'm
not
saying,
disgusted. I find that exhausting. Like, what about?
that's what I just said. So I know it's my best and my worst quality, but I was thrilled to see that this is an attribute that I've had my whole freaking life. That I'm just always framing everything positively, and it's annoying, but I'm glad that I've always been like that.
Love that.
Yeah.
Sorry, Sarah. Don't worry.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying, like,
What is it exhausting for her or for me?
no, I think for your partner. I think.
Right. She said it was one of the things that makes her happy.
I don't know. When my partner wakes up grumpy, I'm like, thank God we can just both be miserable together.
I'm not a miserable person. I don't know. I'm a very content person. I don't know what to say.
I think that
Maybe someone's drugging me.
Please
I don't know about
Please
it.
stop fighting on my stage.
Tegan took all of the serotonin in the womb.
Okay,
as
so I
well.
got all the competence and all the serotonin. What attribute? Answer the question so you can do cute.
You know what? I really play up this idea that I'm like the dark one, not just literally because I'm dressed all in dark clothing today, but I
silly in the footage.
I was
You're
also
very
silly.
sweet.
Yeah, I was totally. I
This whole Sarah's the introvert and I'm the extrovert thing is made up, by the way. I think in part by you all. You've decided it, and that narrative has now seeped into Sarah's brain, but she's so equally as outgoing. Got some friends from high school in the audience. We're getting some nodding approval. Like, Sarah, you are just as extroverted.
I would like to say
you've been living a lie.
Yeah.
This memoir
Yeah.
is just a continuation of the lie that
I was
you're
gonna
selling.
say empathy. I think that what I actually discovered. What I actually discovered from spending a lot of time with my young self is that while I was sensitive and melancholy and distressed, traumatized, and all of those things, I think what ended up coming out of that was a sense of empathy. And I love being gay. I love having the audience that we have. I love talking to people about the things that are going on in their lives because I wish so much that I could have found that as a young person, and not because I didn't have wonderful friends who I loved dearly, but I think I needed community and adults, and I needed to feel like realized by people who seemed okay, who had power, whatever it was, and I didn't have that. And now I really enjoy being a mentor, and I really enjoy being someone who can say, I totally hear you, I really understand that, geez, that sounds terrible, tell me more. Like, and I'm that person, I'm the dark knight, and I'm like, come to me, tell me your feelings and emotions about bad things. And it doesn't necessarily mean we are sad or melancholy or whatever, but it's like, I like people feeling like they can tell me what's going on for them.
I'm sure everybody wants to know, but I relate to that. It's gonna be like, but it's gonna be exciting and great, and they're like, we don't know you. This isn't Arby's.
We might have been you if we hadn't scientifically been an accident and been born as two people. We might have been you. You know, we could have been one person with a balanced personality with all the.
I'm not about. Don't you dare spread that.
Yeah, that's what Sarah just took away from this.
Yeah, that, you want to be me, huh? Who doesn't? No, I'm just kidding. Well, before we get into Q&A, I just want to say, I wanted to be friends with your teen self so bad when I was reading your book, and I was shipping your relationships like it was like the story of the. I was invested. I was so obsessed with how generous you were, and guys, you're in for such a treat when you read this. Like, you will read it in a day, and then you'll be mad that you did it because you'll be like, oh man, I already read it. Then you'll read it again, or buy another copy and read that too. Okay, so we're gonna do Q&A time. The big rule, hard and fast. Please don't pull any, like, I have a comment, not a question. No one wants to hear it ever. This isn't your TED Talk. Come on. Give them your comments then. See, ant energy. Like, you're, right? You're like,
I like it though.
you're welcome.
You're saying what everyone thinks.
You meet me on the tour.
Yeah.
To bully everyone with love. So you're gonna raise your hand, and then someone's gonna come around with a microphone. He's lovely and in a blue shirt, and he is enthusiastic, people. And then I might have to rephrase it if you like go on, that's fine. But like, guys, it's a Q&A. Like, do you really need tips? Like babies literally do it. We got this. Okay. Let's raise our hands for some questions and answers.
Go to a baby Q&A.
Our first baby. So the question was, are you working on a graphic novel and or a TV series?
Okay, so the answer to that is that Tegan and I are working on a graphic novel series, and we don't really want to talk too much about it yet because it's not public knowledge. But there is more stuff coming down the pike, and the television show Rumor got started by Tegan, and all that we're really doing right now is we're sort of working on like a pitch. We'd like to see it made into a television show. So if there's any interest for that, after people read the book, just start a hashtag or something. Just must see it as TV show.
There's like 9,000 streaming services right now. Like
Right?
literally everyone in this room is getting a TV show by the end
Right?
of this interview.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. Handing them out along with the book. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
I am Shona. Oh wow. I was wondering if you could go back in time and meet your teenage self and give yourself one piece of advice, what would you give them?
Why am I getting all the answers?
I just being
So
polite.
polite. Tegan's looking at me like she's like, pass that one. She's like, doesn't say something positive. I know you want to. Go ahead. Don't feel
Well,
embarrassed.
you know what? People would ask us that a lot, and I always used to say really mean things. Like I would say, "Cut your hair sooner." But I think it meant more than that. It meant like embrace who you are and be comfortable with who you are. Because I think probably a lot of queer women have this in common, but you kind of go through this stage where you just let your hair grow forever because you're like terrified to cut it short because you feel like it's your way of saying I'm gay and you'll be found out. Even when all of our friends in high school had short hair, and it didn't seem obvious to me anyway. It doesn't matter. But so I think I would still say that, but I would probably say it in a more positive way.
That's nice, Tegan.
Yeah. I think I think there's just some things you can't avoid when you're young. You just are going to be uncomfortable. So I don't know how much advice I could offer to myself. Sarah and I say this all the time, but I don't necessarily know that a GSA or, someone forcing us out of the closet sooner. I don't know if there's anything that we could have changed about our adolescence that would have really affected us in a positive way, like any differently than it turned out, because look at how great it turned out. So I feel like I don't want to judge it, but I think I would just tell myself to cut my hair sooner, still, but nicer than that. Like I would explain how you can layer hair, like you can thin it out, or like undercut it, so that it takes less time
Or
to
like
blow
a
dry it.
maintenance, like
Yeah.
yeah.
Like it doesn't have to be a super short
Dead
haircut.
ends and frizzies, just a suggestion about hair care.
Yeah. I spent a lot of time thinking about my hair. It was a weight. That's what I would. Sarah?
Yeah, that covers it.
I would have told myself to stop plucking her eyebrows.
I was Brittany over here. I was gonna ask you. You mentioned the 8-hour-a-day kind of writing, and I was just wondering more specifically if you guys had ever written before, or what your writing process was kind of like. I mean, for me, I'd always procrastinate, and then have rituals or anything like that.
I think one of the most important things that we discovered when we started writing the book was we are songwriters who primarily work on computers. We use lots of different music programs, and so what I realized, it sounds so stupid now to me, but as soon as I sat down to write the book, I realized, look, I'm working on the tool that I use every day anyway, so the process of actually sitting down and going to work in the studio still felt really natural to me. It was just that instead of writing melodies or using different kinds of instrumentation, I was only using, words. And but it's because we were working in software programs, it felt really natural to me to use the same kind of techniques that I use when I'm writing music. When we record songs, I can take blocks of sound and say, geez, this verse is more of a pre-chorus. I'm going to move it here and I'm going to shift the chorus back here, and actually physically grabbing audio files and moving them. And so sometimes when I was working on the book, I found myself doing very similar things. What would happen if I start the chapter with the ending of the chapter? Does that work? Is that an interesting idea? So I actually found a lot of the things that help me not get stuck when I'm writing music. I applied them to the writing book process, and they really helped. I don't know how to help procrastination. I hate cell phones.
We're both deeply anxious people. And
Yeah.
I think we handed in every draft a month early.
Yeah, we did. We're very scared. I mean, I'm driven by a sense of fear that I will lose everything and disappoint everyone I've ever known or loved. And so
Sarah would message
that
me and be
helps.
like, we've got to get the draft in next week. And I'd be like, why? And then she was just like, we just shouldn't leave it. We should just get it to
I
them
treat
quickly."
every job. It can even just be cleaning the closets. It's like we're entering end of times. I don't do anything casually. And so I think one of the ways that I try to get out of being unblocked though is spatial. Like I'm a Virgo. It's just, if I'm blocked, I leave wherever I am. If I'm working at home in the studio and I'm not getting anything done, I go to the library. If I can't get anything done at the library, I go to a coffee shop. Like I find myself, there's no sense in staying in a place where I can't get something figured out. And I do find, and I'm sort of a nomadic habitual mover, so that also is self-soothing in some ways. Is like, I don't like my space, so if I change it, maybe something will change in my brain. That's how I deal with it. And wine, if you're of age. LSD if you're not.
Okay, I have time for 2 more questions. So one, and then 2. And then you guys can do whatever you want on your own time.
Hi, Michelle. Simple question. At this point of your life, do you guys still give each other gifts on your birthday?
Interesting question, Michelle. Very interesting question. Tegan and I did celebrate our 39th birthday a few days ago, and one of us received a gift and one of us did not.
Is there a reason? Is it
An
like
expensive
a thing?
gift.
Are you gonna take her out for dinner maybe someplace nice? Like
I don't want that. I don't want a gift now. I don't want a late gift.
I'm gonna totally get Sarah a gift, but I'm gonna get her. She got me something really great. Her and her partner gave me a wonderful gift on our birthday. We taped an episode of Fresh Air with Terry Gross, which was our dream, and then we flew to Toronto, which was not our dream, but also kind of fun. And
After a couple glasses of Chardonnay, it felt like a really good birthday, though. I was like, this is great.
But in between those 2 things, Sarah did give me a gift. And to answer your question, we actually do typically give each other gifts. This year, I don't know, I was like, my partners was multiple times said we should really think about what we're going to get Sarah. And I said, I don't think we're doing gifts this year. I don't know why I said that. And so, yes, her and her partner showed up with a beautiful gift for me. And I think about it all the time since in the last 2 days. And I'm really glad you brought it up.
Tegan's gonna use the rest of this afternoon to look for fantastic gifts.
I got a gift card from Indigo.
Can buy my book with it.
Yeah, totally. I got a book you're gonna love. It's hilarious.
Okay, last cue.
You.
Right there, who I already called on.
Well, it is Teacher Appreciation Day, and there are a bunch of teachers here, so we can get you a
Just give
discount.
a round of applause for teachers. Come on, round of applause for teachers.
So my question is, growing up in high school without technology, is there an experience that's not written in the book that you're very happy about that was not captured with cell phones?
All of it.
So many.
That's we're in
things.
control of the narrative.
I was actually.
We talked about this a lot while we were writing. Every news story that would come out, we'd be like, praise Jesus that there was no freaking internet. Like, when we started our music career, we would have totally been those people that would put everything on YouTube. We would have lived out our entire life on YouTube. I am so glad that it doesn't exist. Based on the 20 hours of footage we did find, you should be glad too.
Glad doesn't quite cover it for me. Deep relief, a sense of gratitude that feels endless, because what we did find is fine, and it's and even if every second of it was leaked on the internet, there wouldn't be very much blowback to deal with, unlike other people in our world. But I do feel a sense of shame and embarrassment at some of the things that we captured, and I'm glad that we've had a chance to let it sort of. I'm glad that it's not. I'm glad that we're not having to use our young person images to launch our career. I think it's with sort of objectivity and context and a sensitivity and a different sort of cultural landscape. I feel like sharing this stuff feels respectful of the people in the videos. We were, like, all joking aside, like, we were teenagers. We were like little kids, you know, figuring out our bodies and our minds. And I'm glad we didn't have to use ourselves as young people. And I hope the way we are using ourselves now feels more dignified than probably we would have done at 18 years old.
I also think the other thing that I was struck by when I was writing was obviously how much time we spent on the phone and how much time you spent, like, Sarah and I had so much strategy, like, to get out of getting in trouble for skipping school, one of us would just sit on the phone all night long, and friends would just call, like, we would all just keep our phones busy so that when the other line beeped and the school message came up that, you know, your student has skipped one or missed one or missed, like, but then also, like, we would call each other and you would talk to a friend, and then someone else would call. Like, just all of the patience that we had,
Like phone operators.
yeah, like now if someone makes me wait 3 seconds, I feel impatient, but I was really struck by how patient we were, also how on time we were. Like, everyone's such a jerk now. All of us in this room are jerks. We think because we have a cell phone, you can text and say you're 15 minutes late, that somehow erases the responsibility of showing up. Like, accountability is like no longer, and I was really struck by how polite we were. And we waited, you had to call, talk to someone's parents, like there was a whole thing, and now it's just all like dick pic and like, emoji, and it's like, where's the asteroid already?
Yeah, see, that's an interesting observation. I kind of never thought about the fact that we had to talk to people's parents all the time.
Parents, and our mom called us constantly, and she would do *69 to double check we were calling from the place we said we were. That, for curfew. Like, just there's so many interesting things that the phone. I don't know. There's just so much more contact. I felt very nostalgic for contact, for talking, for connection, for building relationships, which I think is a lot about to do with school, because you spend so much time with your friends, and like adulthood is just like this like lonely. Like,
See, guys, she feels negative sometimes.
No, because then I just was like, I'm gonna start using the phone. Everyone's getting a call from me. I don't know.
I told
anyway.
you repeatedly, you really need to stop. It's like every 10
I know,
minutes.
sorry, I know.
I'm like, I don't know how else to tell you. I'm
I
not
keep
upset.
accidentally FaceTiming people.
Ooh, that's a fun. I always assume.
I don't like that, and I think it's not consensual when you FaceTime someone without asking them. No one wants to be in any life situation, and then someone's like, "Oh, there you are," and their name, and you're just, I don't know. It feels. I don't like it.
I love the surge of adrenaline because I think something horrible has happened, and this is the only way they can get their message to me. So I'm like, it's time. Like, finally, I saved the world. I told you I had a lot of Liam on my chart. I'm a raging narcissist and tool. It's fine.
You're wonderful. Big hand for Anne for handling Sarah and I so well.
I'm obsessed with you both. I love you both very much.
Thank you for being here.
It meant a lot to be asked.
Thanks for pretending to read our book.
I don't even know your favor. I'm like, what are they in? A TV show? Yeah, all right. Okay, so that's it for this part. Someone now is going to come up and explain
What happens?
what happens next, because Lord knows I don't know. And but you guys have been amazing. Thank you so much, and thank you. Clap for your heroes.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for coming to us. I'll see you in 5 seconds.
All right. So, thank you so much, and we are going to right now.